Hey, welcome to the Cheers to Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Josh Taylor. I'm with my co-host, Levi McClendon, and we're going to do something a little different today. We're going to talk about where we are. Obviously, this is a little bit different setup and scene, but for the podcast, Levi and I are just going to have a conversation about just some reflection of what we've been doing over the last couple of days, some of the meaning behind even being here. So we just want to invite you guys into our conversation as we have it. So, Levi, we're here, Zihuatanejo, Mexico, which has pretty significant meaning to you. Talk about that meeting and why you brought, you have our C-suite here, which is me, Jeremy, Nick, and yourself. And you brought us to this special place. You included us into the special place with you and Jenny, and you allowed our wives to come along, which over the last 4 days of planning, we've just had a great time. It wasn't all just discussion and work. It was getting to know each other, going deeper in our relationships together. Why?
Yeah, good question, Josh. And it's been incredible. And it is a special place. So there's little history on it. So there's a movie called Shawshank Redemption. Watched this movie maybe 14, 15 years ago. During the time that I'd watched the movie, I was going through a pretty difficult time in my own life. My mortgage company tanked, is when the market tanked. So 2007, 2008, right in there. I was going through a difficult personal divorce, really. So I was going through bankruptcy. I was going through a divorce. And life was rough. It was really rough. And so I think when I watched this movie, I really didn't know anything about what the movie is about. But as we'll get into it a little bit, ultimately, Andy Dufresne, falsely accused of murdering his wife, goes to prison, and he's there for 19, 20 years. He ends up, and I'll fast forward, he gets out, but to get out is not easy, right? So he figures out a way to get out, crawls through a tunnel of sewage 500 yards to get to freedom. And so watching this movie had a huge impact on me, because I felt like I was in prison. I was in sewage pipe. I just felt like I was in the middle of this hell.
Yeah.
And so this gave me hope, is what it did. And I literally, after watching that movie, I was like, someday I am going to make it through this tunnel. I'm going to get there. And at the end of the movie, they end up in Zihuatanejo, Mexico. At the time, I didn't know where it was. I don't even think I looked it up, Josh. I was just like, someday I'm going to make it to my Zihuatanejo. And that movie became my favorite movie. From that point forward, I watched it several times, and it just gave me this hope. And it painted this picture of someday, if I continue to work hard, if I continue to put one foot in front of another, if I continue to dream, someday I'm going to end up in Zihuatanejo.
So we watched it the other night all together, and that was probably the third or fourth time that I'd seen the movie all the way through. And great movie. Recommend anybody watch it. But maybe if you're listening to this and you've watched it before, maybe watch it again with a different perspective, because that's what I did. And I saw the movie differently. I got some things out of it that I never saw before, some conversations that Andy had in the movie, some things that he did. And I've got 4 takeaways that I just want to kind of throw out your way and get you to discuss, maybe even applying them into your own life, because I do think that a lot of the people that are listening can really learn from you and what you've been through, how you've built a company, you've built a team, you have built a list of customers that we serve and serve well, and a lot of them become raving fans. I think that we can learn a lot from the things that you've been through. So the first one is the rock hammer. Morgan Freeman plays Red, and we'll talk a little bit more about him in just a little bit, but he plays Red, who is Andy's friend that he befriends in the movie in prison, but he gets him this rock hammer. He gets Andy this rock hammer, and Andy thinks, or makes him think, that he's got a rock hobby, and so he's just using it to carve chess pieces out of rocks and stuff. But what he's really doing is, for 19 years that he's in prison, he's chiseling away at the wall in his room, in his cell, ultimately digging a tunnel to the sewage system that he has to crawl through 500 feet of crap to freedom. The rock hammer represents that small actions over time build success. They compound into success. What does that look like for an entrepreneur? What does that look like for even a leader, a business owner, or whatever it might be?
Yeah, I think that because of how small that rock hammer was, and the small amount of progress that you make, to me, it's like sometimes in life, we don't always see results quickly.
Right.
And so when you look at that and say every day there's consistency, we talk about showing up, we talk about putting one foot in front of another in order to make progress, to climb the mountain. You eat an elephant one bite at a time. I know all these, people talk about all the time, but it is such a true statement that showing up, and I think about OpSpot. I think about us 11, 12 years ago when we launched the company, and literally our first customer is paying us $50 a month.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about chipping away, right? It's just $50 a month to the next customer, but it was being consistent, and it's showing up no matter if you think, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get there. I'm never going to make it to the end. When are we ever going to be able to get to our Zihuatanejo? And that was Jenny and I. I mean, when we started this 10, 12 years ago, our goal was to get to Zihuatanejo. Like, that was it. And it was chipping away one customer at a time. I've been here. This is my third time to be here. But 3 years ago, this was a goal of ours to get to here. And it was really special for me to be here with Jenny. I surprised her, brought her here, walked to the beach, played our songs, had our moments, cried. Like, it was crazy because there was such, we had such hope and such vision to get there, but it took a lot of time. It took hard work. It took putting in the sacrifices. It took continually showing up. And that's what we tell our kids. That's what we tell everybody. Show up, do the little things. Little things make big differences, but continue to do them. Even though you may not see the difference today, all of a sudden, Andy Dufresne, as he's busting through, boom, right, it's open.
He sees
and it's like, whoa, here I am.
The things that you had mentioned earlier, and Andy, he had a rock hammer. He didn't have a bulldozer. He didn't have a sledgehammer. He didn't have a pickaxe. He had a tiny little rock hammer. Imagine if he had one of those. How quickly he could have built a hole, or put a hole in his wall, but he never found freedom. He would have been caught, easily.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Because if he took that in there, he's not getting out. You're not getting out with that. He got out by doing the little things over and over again. And that's the only way he could escape.
Yeah, it's chiseling away every single day. I love the way that you said it. It's doing the little things every single day. Even when you don't think it matters. Even when you think nobody cares, nobody's watching, nobody's listening. I think people are. And even if they're not, they will. And it's going to happen, that compound effect. We want immediate gratification. And I am such one of my favorite things to do is go out and mow the grass. And the reason is because I love to look behind me and I like to see the lines. It's that instant
gratification.
And that's what we want everything to be. We live in an instant gratification world, and we've forgotten that sometimes we just need to get up every single day and chisel away. And Andy, he couldn't chisel a ton at a time because he had a plan. And he said, for me to do this and do this successfully and not get caught, I also have to be able to do just enough where I can fit that pieces of wall into my pocket and get rid of it out on the yard when we go out for recreation. So I can't do so much that it's obvious what I'm doing. And so he's chiseling away a little bit, and then hiding it behind a poster so that nobody sees it. And it's just, I think it's such a great concept. I think that's the first lesson. We've got to figure out what is that rock hammer that we have, and how do we stay consistent every single day?
I just came up with something, Josh. This is brand new, hot off the press. You can't mow a lawn without first planting seed. Think about it. You can't. And I'm off track a minute here, but I started thinking about, you love mowing the lawn.
I do.
Because you see, but how did that grass get there?
Somebody laid it out.
But how did the grass get there?
I still couldn't mow it.
How did the grass get there? Somebody had to plant it. Somebody had to plant seed, and you've got to plant seeds. And that's boring.
Yeah.
You want to watch the seed grow? No. You want to go out there and mow the lawn and see the results.
And you want to wake up tomorrow and it'd be perfectly green and lush and all of these things, but it takes that time. And you're going to get that reward, but you got to be patient. You got to wait for it. And then there's the right time. I mean, even when we laid our grass down, I'm such a go out and mow it. I want to do it now. I want to do it now, but that would tear it up. It would destroy the lawn had I done it. So I had to wait for the right moment. I had to wait for the right time. And I think even, if the car washes that are listening, we obviously encourage people to build text clubs as big as they can. Part of that is planting that seed. You've got to build that text club and then leverage it at the right time. But we want to, we want to start building today and then leverage it tomorrow. And it takes time, and it takes patience, and it takes sometimes frustration because you have to wait sometimes, but success is going to come on the other side if you do it the right way and trust that process, which I think brings us to the second point from the movie, is trusting that process. And that's what Andy had. He didn't have a blueprint of the prison, so he had no idea even what was on the other side of that wall, but he trusted the process. He trusted If I just keep doing this, it's going to lead to something good. And so I think that's the second point from the movie is trusting that
process,
believing that the results are going to be there and trusting that process and sticking to it. I think we struggle when we don't see immediate results. I think we want to give up too easily and too quickly. You have those points at HubSpot, like you were just right, to kind of be done.
I think early on when you're just like, is this ever going to manifest into a living? I mean, my wife's working in the ER. She's working, sometimes 12 hours a day when she do 4 12s. And I'm home with the kids, trying to build a business, trying to make that happen in the very beginning. And then you would sign some customers up. You would lose some customers. You would sign some up. You would lose some customers. And I think there are times when you're like, am I doing the right thing?
Yeah.
And I think that's any time that we're not seeing those results that we're looking for. I think human nature is for us to give up or change the course, change the path. And sometimes, Josh, it's okay to pivot. I think if you've, gone down a path or you've tried something for a certain amount of time and you need to pivot. But man, overall, I think that consistency, perseverance, we talk about, I think in business, Josh, I have a 5P: passion, people, product. The 5th P that I have is perseverance. Like if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, if you want to be a successful dad, if you want to be a successful coach, perseverance is huge. And you have to persevere to see results of the seeds that you're planting.
Well, I think that's important. Even in the movie, once he finally gets through that wall, he's still got to walk through 500 yards
of crap, of sewer. And he has to get into the tunnel and literally.
But he also believed that if I can get through this crap, freedom is on the
other side.
So he had to even persevere through that. And what he could have done is he could have busted a hole through that sewage, smelled it, saw what it was, and said, no way, I can't do that.
People do that, Josh. I think a lot of people get to a point where it's just too hard or it smells too bad or it's just not my life. And they turn around and they go back to the prison. They go back to what they were. And it's the Israelites. When you think about it, like there's the promised land, but
at least we knew what we got back here.
Yeah, at least we know what we have. And they wanted to go back. Take us back.
At least we got meals. They weren't the best meals, but at least we had food. Yeah, that's so right. Like we want to go back. What is this? The Bible says our dog returns to its vomit. We go back to what we know. We go back to what we're comfortable with instead of understanding the freedom. Us as parents, we see that for our kids. So we can see the stupid decisions that they make, or if they just stick with this. My son is always like, "Ooh, I want to spend money on this." I was like, "But if you just wait, you could get this." But he just can't comprehend that. And I think, not to turn this into, a super spiritual conversation, but I think that's the way that God looks at us sometimes is, if you will just wait, if you will just persevere, if you'll just stick to my plan, this is what I have waiting for you over here. And that's what he did with the Israelites. Obviously, that's what he does with us. And that's, what we do with our kids. But for some reason, we struggle to see that in our own life.
It's our lives, it's our business. And as entrepreneurs, man, we can take so many of those lessons ourselves as we're giving those lessons to our kids. I think we need to look at that ourselves and say, what are those things we can be patient? What are the things that we can continue to show up, to persevere, to put the time and effort in to get those results? And I'll tell you, and that comes back to me as patience, man. I got to pray for patience every day in my life, from the, company to my wife to my kids. And we try to tell our kids the same thing, but they need to be able to see it in us. And I think over time, if you persevere and have patience, you'll see those results.
So the third thing that I saw in the movie that I took away, and I didn't see this the first couple of times, I think maybe because I was younger. And so I watched it. He gets the library built. They have a small little library when he first goes in, not much, but he begins to write the senator every single day.
Perseverance.
Yeah.
He wrote letters. Like every day.
And they finally funded him just to get him to stop writing letters. And they actually gave him a little bit of funding to get him to stop, but it wasn't good enough for him. And so he said, "I'm going to start writing.
I'm right
today." So then they ended up giving him like consistent renewable funds every month to build this great library for the prison. And what happened through that is a lot of the prisoners started getting their GEDs and high school diplomas and all of these, bettering themselves. And he gets music. And the first scene that he plays music, he wasn't supposed to. He's got this record player. He puts a record on and starts playing Mozart. And he sits and listens, and he takes the microphone that's sitting in there because he's in the guard's office getting all this together. The guard goes to the bathroom. He ends up locking the guard in the bathroom, taking the microphone and playing the music all over the prison speakers. For a lot of these guys in prison, that's the first time they've heard music in 50 years. And everybody just stops and they listen. And then music obviously becomes a part of the library, and they can go in there and they can listen to records and those kind of things. Hank Williams is one of they want to listen to. But that to me was another lesson is not only did Andy in the 20 years that he was in prison better himself in the process, better himself in the journey, but he bettered other people in it. He brought other people along in the journey, and he bettered them as well. Honestly, I'm a byproduct of you doing that with OpSpot. I'm not going to get emotional here. Try not to. But you've brought other people on the journey. I mean, shoot, you've got the three of us here with you and Jenny in this special place. Mm-hmm. Getting to experience this. This is probably not a place that Rachel and I would have not only ever been to, but never even would have thought to go to. And now, we get to experience this with you. And hopefully it's not the last time we get to experience this with you. But you're so great at bringing other people on the journey. One of the things that makes you different than other people that I've worked with is it's never really been about the money for you. It's not like you don't like making money, because we like to make money, but that's not the most important thing to you. What it's always been about for you is changing people's life and making them better. Why has that been such an important part of your business journey?
Well, if I go back to Andy, I think about the library, right? He created an environment that he could make people better, which made him better. And I think with him surrounding himself, pouring into people, they were getting their GEDs, he was doing taxes, he was doing things. I think I relate to him where I've never wanted to do things really on my own. I think you get isolation, you can get greedy in a way, you can get prideful. And I think surrounding yourself with other very like-minded people to me has been huge. And to bring people, and you're right, Jenny and I talked about, do we bring other people here? Yeah. And that was a conversation. I mean, it's so special to us, to this place itself, not just because it's amazing, but because of the meaning that it has in our lives. And to be able to, we thought, man, wouldn't it be cool someday to bring our C-suite here? Wouldn't it be awesome to come and share this? And so to be able to watch the movie, share this time that we're having together and bring people along, it is nothing more honestly gratifying or satisfying to me or Jenny. It's just, it's our hearts. And to be able to share that with others to me, that's more important, Josh, just like you said, than the money that we make. What is the impact that we're having on other people's lives? What's the impact we're having on the kingdom? What's the impact? And I think when I get myself out of the way and out of the picture, the joy and the peace and the accomplishments for me. I mean, the conversation I had with Jeremy today, on the sidewalk, and this conversation now he's just like, Levi, kind of the same thing. You have brought us up you've helped us better ourselves. Yeah. And I told Jeremy, and just like I'll tell you guys, me bringing you along has pushed me along. So you're pushing me to be better. I'm pushing you to be better, and we're doing this together. And I couldn't ask for a better place to celebrate. And I'm so happy that we brought you guys here and that we're celebrating this together. And I think they understand the what do you call it, sentimental experience that this has been for us. And I'm glad to have been able to share it with you guys.
So that's the third takeaway for me is, in the process, it's important that you're not only bettering yourself, but you're bettering other people. You're taking people along the journey with you. And not just to be on the journey, but to become better. All of us, we need to be able to look back the last year, the last 5 years. Are we better today than we were then? And maybe you're not richer. Maybe you're not, you're not the things that the world likes to judge success, but are you a better person?
Yeah.
Have you learned new things? Have you become, more passionate about people and caring for people? So I do think that that's important in the process, is bettering yourself and bettering other people. And then the last one was Red's journey. That's kind of the fourth takeaway. Red was played by Morgan Freeman. He was in there for 20 years before Andy even got to prison. He was the guy that could get all this stuff. He was the one that got Andy's rock hammer for him. He's the guy that gets all the cigarettes for the guys and all that stuff. And he befriends Andy in the movie. And by the time, towards the end of the movie, when Red is released on parole, he's been in jail for 40 years. And he makes the comment to Andy before Andy escapes, which is kind of going to be my bonus, lesson. But before Andy escapes, he tells Andy, I'm institutionalized. Freedom is not for me. Because they had a friend, Brooks, who was an older guy that got released after being in there for 50 years, couldn't handle being out in the real world. He'd been institutionalized, and he ends up killing himself out in the real world because he said it was either that or I commit a crime and go back to prison, because that's home for me. Red had been institutionalized to think small. And I don't believe you're not a small thinker. I mean, I think anybody that knew you would never describe you as a small thinker. The only thing that I could ever say that was maybe small thinking was when you and I first met, I had you write down your vision, your goals, and you had different visions and different goals. And, there was revenue goals in there. And even in your 5-year revenue goal, we hit it in 2 years or 2.5 years, something like that in half the time. I don't think that has anything to do with me. I think it has to do with the fact that you're not a small thinker. Even deciding to pivot into just working with car washes, where that decision would scare most people because niching down scares most people. That was a big decision for you. And then starting the freedom package that we did, and then deciding, when you hired me to come on 3.5 years ago, you didn't even have the money to pay me. But you took a chance because you weren't a small thinker. And now, I was number 7 employee, and now we have 32 employees full-time working with us. And, that doesn't happen with small thinking. But Red had been institutionalized to think small. How do you see small thinking affecting people, leaders, business people, entrepreneurs?
Well, I think ultimately our nature probably is, fear-based.
Yeah.
And I think people fear the unknown. They fear what's out there. Even with, Red probably didn't want to even get out there because he feared not being able to survive.
Right.
And I think...
Well, and for instance, he was somebody.
He was somebody. He's the guy that could get things. He had this identity.
It's important.
But sometimes that identity and knowing where he's at will hold you back. I think that held him back from, and I think a lot of times our comfort level and our comfort zone and what we know here holds us back from something even greater. And I know, for me personally, it's surrounding myself, number one, with people who have gone there, done that, and who have pivoted, who have made a decision, who have decided to niche down, who, over time, learning and growing from what other people have done. For me, I look at those people that have gone before me and say, how did they do it? What did they do? Right. And over time, for me, it's getting alone. It's taking time. It's praying. It's, every decision I've made, man, I've either been on a vacation, up in a tree stand hunting, or, just having alone time where I'm able to get away from it and say, what are truly the possibilities for this company, for where we're going, where we're heading? And then putting the right people. I mean, I continue to say that it's not me. It's have the ability to see a guy like you. And I told you this the first time that I met you. Met Josh on a Zoom call, and after an hour with him, I'm like, okay, because I can't do it. I couldn't do it on my own, but who is it that can come along to help us get to that number? And after an hour of being with you, I'm like, that's a guy that can help us get to that bigger number and help us dream.
I think that's one of your superpowers. And you and I talked about it yesterday when you hired me on to be the CMO. I was in a rough headspace. There were a lot of things happening in my life. I was burnt out. I was stressed. I was doubting myself, going through a lot of different things. And I decided, even at that point, I was giving up on marketing. That maybe even thinking about going back into ministry, because maybe this just isn't my thing. Maybe it's so stressful for me because I'm not good at it. And then you were like so excited for an opportunity to work together. And for me, it was the belief in me that I needed, because I wasn't having it in myself. But you had this ability to see potential in people and then call that potential out, to push people to stretch them. I mean, there have been ways that you've stretched me to do things that I've even tried before and failed. Even we talked about this on the podcast before, but even me getting healthier and losing weight, like I tried all that before and failed, but it was somebody believing that I could do it, and not just saying, hey, you can do it, but truly believing that I could do it and giving me that motivation and that vision and that goal to do it. That's your superpower, and you have that ability. And to me, that's thinking big. I think a lot of business owners and leaders, they have people that follow them or work under them, and they just give up on them so easily. They say, they don't show up for work, or they're lazy, or maybe they just want somebody to really haul the best in them out and believe in them and give them the patience to, that they deserve to become the person that only they can be because you're leading.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And I think just by our nature, or by even our circumstances growing up, or something has happened. I mean, we talk about this a lot. Traumatic even has happened where people don't feel that they can excel. They can't take that next step. They can, whatever that looks like. And I think just seeing, like, I know with you, man, I saw so much potential. Maybe you didn't see, but for me to be able to pull that potential out of you, give you I guess the faith and the courage to move forward with that.
I'm overconfident.
I got to draw them back a little bit. No, but it's huge. And to see you get to that level, and all I'm doing is, I see that, and I want everybody to live the life that I live. Everyone to feel amazing and have an awesome family. Like I'm giving people books all the time. I'm like, read this book because it'll change your life. Like my nature is just to want people to live their best life. Yeah. And I thank God for that. I'm very grateful and thankful that I typically see the glass half full. I constantly think there are no limits to what God has given us the ability to do. We can do those things, but I think, again, surrounding yourself with those people that pull it out. People pulled it out of me. We don't always see those gifts. You pull things out of me, telling me even these things. Gosh, am I a good leader? Do I pull the best out of people? I don't know. So, and sometimes being on the top, you don't always get that, right? You're the leader of the company, and there are people more jealous of you than anything. They say it's lonely at the top, and sometimes it can be. But when you bring the right people around you, they're also, even these conversations I'm having with you guys here gives me, even though I may seem all confident and I've got it all together, I need that too. I think we all need that. And I think when you can pour into one another and you can sharpen each other as iron sharpens iron, I think the sky is the limit. And there needs to be more of that, I think, in these spaces. And I think that our entrepreneurs and those running businesses, to me, it is probably one of the most important things is making sure that the people feel seen, they feel loved, they feel like they have an opportunity, and that it isn't just about us making money. It's literally about our people and the clients we're doing business with. So very important to me.
So here's my bonus takeaway from this. And you said this earlier that, what the difference between Andy and Red is that Andy had a vision. He had a goal. He had a dream. He knew what was waiting for him on the other side. It was Zihuatanejo. It was a hotel that he could rent out to people. It was a boat that he could fix up and take those guests out in Zihuatanejo. And so he always had that in front of him as he was chiseling away. Red didn't. Yeah. Red's like, this is my life. This is home. Prison is my home. I'm somebody in here. I'm going to stay here. This is what I know. He didn't know what could have been. And Andy introduced that to him when he got out of prison. But when they're having that conversation leading up to the famous line in the movie, which is get busy living or get busy dying, Andy had decided, we're brought into it. Some series of tragic events happens. The kid that Andy was mentoring gets shot. There's a lot of corruption in the prison, and they're really just, trying to make sure that Andy can't get away because he knows things now that will have the warden prosecuted forever. And so they can't let that happen. And so Andy, and the way that Morgan Freeman narrates this scene, he says, Andy had decided he'd been here long enough. 19 years he'd been there, falsely accused for murdering his wife. And then Andy tells Red, he said, you know what? I didn't murder my wife, but I could have been a better husband. I could have lived a better life. There are things I could have done better, but I served my time. I've paid my penance, and I deserve better than this. And that was obviously the moment. We didn't know it at the time if you'd never seen the movie, but you realize looking back, that's the moment he decided, today is the day I'm making my escape. The tunnel is ready. I have my way out. Today is the day. And he makes that decision. But what he had decided was, I deserve better than this. Red thinks all he deserves, all that he has is prison. Andy believes freedom is out there waiting on me. I'm choosing to go get it today. To me, a lot of us simply won't make that choice. I think, it's easier for us to be like Red and be the victim. Andy could have been the victim. He was falsely accused. All these terrible things are happening to him that he doesn't deserve. But he chose not to play the victim. He chose to make a choice. I'm going to write my own story. Yeah. I am not going to be stuck in this story that's been written for me. I'm going to write and you had to choose that. You had a season of life that was really, really tough. And you could have played the victim because those things that were happening, they were not your fault. It was happening to everyone. But you made a decision. I'm not letting fate pick up this pen and write my story. I'm going to write my own story. So that was one of my takeaways from it. That was my bonus takeaway.
Well, I think seeing that at this stage of life that you're in, and you even making the decision even to come work for us, that's the same thing. You can either stay the path and have that. Obviously, I didn't know that you weren't even thinking about not being a marketer anymore.
Well, don't hold that against me.
We got to rethink this. But that's interesting. You were at a crossroads as well, more than I even thought. So the fact that, again, you had to make that choice, because as we put the offer together stuff, I'm sure you were thinking, okay, gosh, do I go down this, or do I, go, pivot or go another direction or go back to being a pastor? But I didn't think about that as I've been watching the movie. But when you bring that point up, I think that to me, it's that, and you bring up the victim mindset, right? You bring up, and those are two different mindsets, Andy Dufresne and Red. And Andy had the, he shifted, and we talked about being above the line or below the line, and that's a whole nother podcast, which I'd love to do. But being below the line is more victim to me, and to shift to be above the line, it's by me, right? Or for me. Right. So what has happened, and how do I shift that? And that's what Andy did, was he said, like now it's by me, I'm controlling the outcome. Red accepted it, and he lived below, like everybody else lived below it, and Andy refused to. And I think that's a huge lesson for all of us. There's things that have happened out of our control. There's things happening right now out of control. There's things that are going to happen. It's okay that they happen. Recognize that they've happened, and then try to shift to the for me, not a to me mindset. And I think that is huge when you're trying to raise a family, grow a business.
I just thought of this, and this I think this is profound. In the movie, we would say the hero of the story is Andy, if you're following the storyboard format, and the guide is Morgan Freeman.
Morgan. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to shift those around.
Okay.
Because all stories are about transformation. At the end of the movie, Andy tells Red to make him a promise. I want you, when you get out, I want you to go to find this oak tree. And under that oak tree, there's going to be some rocks, and there's going to be a glass lava rock or something like that. And under that, there's something buried in there. Promise me you'll go find that.
Yeah.
Andy is the guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Transformation happens to Morgan Freeman because Morgan Freeman, who thinks he's institutionalized, that he will never have freedom, he decides to trust the process.
Yes.
He says, I'm gonna do what Andy told me to do.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna go find him. And in that is a box with money, tickets to
Zihuatanejo,
and tickets to Zihuatanejo to join him in that freedom experience.
Yeah.
The transformation really happens to Red.
With Red. I have to think that through.
He ended up trusting the process.
Because the whole time I'm watching it, I'm like thinking, okay.
And he's the main character.
Yeah. Got a character who has a problem, right? He's in prison. He finds the guide, but it's a kind of a combination.
Yeah.
But Andy, and you're right, Andy ends up having more probably of an impact on more people in the prison than just himself.
He's the guy.
Yeah. That's good.
And Red has the transformation because he shifts from being a prisoner with an institutionalized mindset.
Yeah.
And I can never have freedom to, I mean, he even goes to his parole meetings where he gets rejected every single time, saying the same thing over and over and over again, knowing he's going to get rejected. And then he goes to the final parole meeting and he gets approved, but he answers the questions differently. He answers them honestly. He answers them in a very transformative way.
Yeah. And
he's approved for his parole.
Yeah.
And then he trusts the process that Andy told him, go to this place, find this rock, dig this up, and do what the legend says.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
So it's a good movie. All stories are about transformation. Your story is about transformation. Your story is about
transformation. Your story,
and
a lot of transformation.
And I don't know. It's such good stuff. So anyway, the moral of the story is watch Shawshank Redemption and then come to Zihuatanejo.
Moral of the story is what is your Shawshank, right? Like, what might you be struggling with? What prison might you be in? What decision?
And maybe it's a prison of mediocrity. Maybe it's a prison of just staying where you're comfortable, knowing this isn't what all life
is about. Yeah.
But it's comfortable. It's what you need.
Yeah.
And to do anything different would be too big of a risk.
Well, and what are you doing every day? Trust the process. Do something. Get busy living. And living is literally taking the pickaxe, the little rock hammer, and making an impact. And what can you do to make an impact on the rest of your life?
Yeah.
Because it's huge.
Well, Levi, thank you for taking us here. Thank you for taking us on this journey with you.
Awesome.
It's been amazing so far, and I can't wait for the next several years and what we get to accomplish, and what we get to watch people who are listening to this and the people that we work with accomplish as well. It's
reach out too, man. If you guys have our information or number, we'd love to know thing, if this is helpful, where you're going, what you're breaking through, what that freedom looks like to you. And we love this stuff. So we love to see you guys do well and break free and make it to the next level. So
to subscribe to the podcast, text cheers to 411365. Text cheers to 411365, and that'll let you know when things are happening, when new episodes launch, those kinds of things. But yeah, subscribe. And so, Levi.
Until next time, man.
Cheers.
Cheers.